Okay, I'm sorry if I sound a little different in this video. I might be getting a cold, so I'm a little congested and my voice is not how it usually is, so I apologize for that in advance. As promised, here is my 1-year recap video. I'm not sure what I'll title this yet, but it has been 1 year since I started running Haikino. So if you're new here, hello, I'm Ivana and I'm the artist behind Haikino. I make polymer clay and paper goods featuring Kino the seal, and I wanted to make kind of like a recap video of my first year running a small business and kind of just give a little insight into my experience running a small business. So over this year, I've seen a lot of growth. Here are kind of just some numbers so you can get kind of a rough idea of my growth throughout this 1 year. I would say like social media growth isn't really linear, and for me there were actually a lot of periods of stagnancy. So I started in October 2023 and my first drop consisted mostly of earrings. So this is when I debuted like the Pancakino and Toastkino designs, and I don't think I had any sales during that period. That was my first drop, and as I'm filming, I realize I didn't script any of this part, so if this section sounds really messy, I'm really sorry. And honestly, since I started Haikino without a following, that's kind of expected, so I wasn't too bummed about it, but I was a little bit sad. And in November, I had my second drop, which is where I debuted my phone charms, and that was when I started to see a couple sales come in. And in December, I kind of had like a mini drop of earrings, which didn't do too well, but that was probably because they weren't polymer clay related items. I kind of had a post go viral near the end of the year, and I kind of started to slow down posting during that time, which was a bad idea. In hindsight, like I probably should have taken advantage of that momentum a little bit more. But after I started posting more consistently again, I started to see growth in my account again, so honestly, if you ever see stagnancy in your account, like don't worry, like you can always build that momentum back up again. So I didn't have another drop for my shop until March, and I restocked my sold out phone charm designs and introduced a couple new designs as well. And in March was when I started posting on YouTube regularly, and eventually I made it a goal to post once a week, which I did for a couple months before I decided that that wasn't really healthy for me. So I've rolled back my posting schedule to every other week now, which I've been sticking to kind of okay, pretty well. And then in April I had my strawberry themed shop update, which did pretty well. After my strawberry shop update, I did a restock, and then I did a summer shop update in July, which actually did really well, and I'm really proud of that shop update. And then in August, I released my first sticker sheets, which were kind of my first dip into paper goods, and I've been slowly trying to introduce more paper goods into my shop. And then in September, I had my fall shop update, which was bakery themed, and that was kind of when I saw my shop really start to grow. I had a really good month for that month. And then in October, I did my first in-person market events, which I kind of detailed in 2 separate videos. And overall, my market experience has been so-so personally, but I think that was a really good step forward in my small business. And after that kind of messy summary, that kind of leads us to where we are today. So my plans for the future are, I have a winter shop update coming soon. So when I filmed that portion, I didn't have a date yet decided for the shop update, but now I do. It is actually tomorrow, Saturday, November 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So if you'd like to check it out, head to haikino.com. I'll have it linked in the description. So yeah, okay. And I also have my next in-person market event in December, which I'm looking forward to. But as for broader goals for the next year, I kind of want to work on my consistency. I think I want to focus on quality over quantity for my social media posts going forward. I would also like to be more diligent with cross-posting across platforms. I kind of have a bad habit of posting my reels to Instagram and then forgetting to repost them to TikTok and YouTube Shorts, which is not a good thing because I put in all the effort into filming and editing the video, so I might as well post it on other social media platforms to reach a wider audience. So hopefully I will do more of that in the future. Now we're gonna move on to kind of like a Q&A section. I posted on YouTube and Instagram for questions. Before we get into the questions that people have submitted, I kind of wanted to cover a topic that I get asked about a lot, which is advice for starting a small business. I would say the hardest and most important part of it is to just start. A lot of the things that you are trying to figure out right now and are researching about, you can actually learn by doing. For example, prior to starting my shop, I was really scared about shipping for some reason, but Once I started shipping packages, I learned that it wasn't as complicated as I thought it would be, and it was a process that I could really easily learn by just shipping out one package. I did make a couple mistakes early on, but that is okay, and I was able to take those lessons I learned and apply them in the future. I would also like to give a word of caution, because running a small business is not always fun, and turning something you love into a business can often take the fun out of it. I have had to personally struggle with not enjoying sculpting before, and that is still something that is ongoing and I'm dealing with. Once you tie money into your art, it can really change your relationship with it, so I would spend some time to sit down and think if this is the right decision for you. This is especially true if you are someone who has deep personal investment in your art. And as an example, before I ran Hikino, I was actually more focused on illustration, but I've made a conscious decision to not focus my art business on illustration for a number of reasons. And one of them was that running an illustration Instagram actually damaged my relationship with illustration to the point that I just really didn't enjoy drawing anymore. So art and business don't always mix really well together, and you have to maintain some degree of separation. So yeah, just some things to think about before you decide to start your own art business. And moving on to more specific questions, Noor's Artsy Hangout asks, how do you get inspo for new products? Most of my drops have been season related, so I've been getting a lot of inspiration from seasonal produce and the kind of desserts and snacks that are associated with that season. So I'll start by writing out and sketching out ideas and kind of go from there. I also love going out to pastry shops and seeing what kind of desserts they have. And I also like saving cute pictures of desserts on Pinterest as well as following food creators on Instagram and seeing what kind of stuff they make with seasonal produce. Inspiration can come from odd places as well, so keep an eye out. For example, I was inspired to make bookmarks from this really old bookmark we've had lying around for a while, and I just saw the bookmark attachment and thought, if I could attach my own clay charms to that, that could be a bookmark as well. I would caution against using other people's clay creations as inspiration, as you can start to veer too close to making some things that are too similar, and I think as an art expression you do want to try to make things that really look and feel like your own. Ichigo Patisserie asks, how do you organize time to work on your small business but also do things outside of it? And I'm going to admit that my time organization skills aren't super great right now. I do my best to try to relegate certain hours of the day to work, and then also make sure that I make plans with friends so that way I go outside and touch grass. I use a physical weekly planner to keep track of tasks and events and activities and that kind of thing, but this comment will be encouragement for me to be better about organizing my time, and I do want to try time blocking a little bit more. Mika asks, messier things. How did you register for your business? How do you do the taxes? Do you have any advice for those looking at the financial side, people looking to own a small business? I know you're probably looking for a more specific answer to this question because I was too when I was starting out my small business, but the unfortunate truth is that there isn't really a one-size-fits-all answer to this question. It varies widely depending on where you live, so I would encourage you to do your research at the federal, state, county/province level, and as well as city level. So depending on where you live, in each of those categories, each state and county and city can have different rules and regulations for registering your business and paying fees and that kind of thing. So that would be my answer. I'm sorry I can't give a more specific answer. I am not a financial or tax advisor. As for financials, I'm also not the best person to ask about this because I am not a numbers-brained person or finance or profit-driven kind of person. I do keep a spreadsheet to track all my expenses and earnings just to kind of keep a tab on how my business is doing numbers-wise. One tip I do have for keeping your business expenses down is to make sure to try to use things you already have as much as possible. A lot of the tools that I use were actually things I found lying around my house, and then I recycle packing material from things that I get in the mail. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm really sorry that I don't have really specific answers for that. Lilo Art asks, what are your thoughts on pricing the products we work so hard on? Pricing is honestly a really big struggle. I've talked about my struggle with pricing in previous videos before. My biggest advice to make sure you're pricing yourself fairly is to make sure you're covering these 3 different things, which is 1, your time. So you take the amount of time you spent working on a product multiplied by what you would consider your hourly rate. And 2 is to make sure you're covering your material costs, which is how much you would spend on the materials to make your items. And 3, something that a lot of people forget, myself included, is overhead costs. So overhead costs are costs that it takes to run your business as a whole, like not specific to that one item. Like this can include things like electricity or like P.O. box if you're renting a P.O. box, or like rent for a studio if you're renting a studio. So those kinds of things need to be also factored into your product cost. There is probably a desire to maintain competitive pricing, especially in the online space. Like I see people pricing things really competitively, but one thing to keep in mind when you're pricing things is that your price reflects the quality of your work, and eventually you'll find people who are willing to spend money on your art and products, and that this is your target audience. Okay. And Gen C9HK asks about materials. I do have a full video dedicated to my supplies and materials if you want a detailed look into that. My most asked questions are what brand of clay do I use and what do I use to coat my charms. So for clay, I mostly use Sculpey Primo and Fimo Soft. I've also been experimenting with air dry clay, and the brand of air dry clay I use is Pedico's La Dalle Premier, I think. And as for what I use to glaze my charms, I either use UV resin or Liquitex matte varnish. And Choco Doll asks, how do you get your products more out there, like exposure for your brand? So all my marketing has been conducted through social media, and this is either making posts or reels on like Instagram or YouTube videos like you're watching right now. I haven't paid for any sponsored posts or Etsy advertisements, so I can't really speak on the effectiveness of those. Social media growth can be really slow, inconsistent, and overall just like kind of a frustrating experience. Luck is a big factor in growing on social media, and I have found that slow, consistent growth often leads to finding your real target audience more often than viral growth. But if you do happen to go viral, I would say take advantage of that momentum. I've also done a handful of in-person markets, which has been really great for getting my work seen by more people, but I don't really have any solid metrics for how much that has translated into people actually finding my work and following my work. Okay, and then Yukina asks, if you were able to tell your past self one thing on running a small online business, what would it be? This might be like ultra specific to my situation, but don't make those earrings as your first products. Just make the phone charms. I'm not sure what was going through my head when I started Hikino and I made those earrings as my first product, since I always wanted to make phone charms. Like, not good things probably, but I don't know why I made earrings as my first products. So make the phone charms. Don't make the earrings. But I think something that can be taken from this experience that I had that can be more widely applicable is to make sure you experiment early on with your products, especially if you have a small audience. Like, take advantage of the fact that you have a small audience and there's like less expectations for what your brand is, that you can experiment a lot early on. I don't know why, like, I think it's like from seeing other people on social media like make huge trays of like many of the same product. I had it in my brain that like I needed to do that too. But this is me saying to you and myself that it is okay to make just one of a design and just sell that one design. Like, it is okay to start small. You don't need to make a lot of things. And it is okay to change what you want to make. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm really proud of myself and all of you for sticking around for a full year. Honestly, like, I have been feeling a little bit down about my small business and just other things in general. But I think looking back on this year, I think we have done a very good job. I'm really, really grateful for all the support and love that you guys have shown me and my products. Like, I'm like a broken record at this point. But I am truly, truly, really grateful for anyone who has watched my videos, shared them, like, liked or commented. Like, it really, really means a lot to me. And I don't know, this is like my first time. Like, I've been on social media for a really long time, and this is kind of my first time really seeing something come to fruition and be like quote unquote successful. Like, Obviously, success can be defined really differently by different people, but personally for me, like running Haikino has been successful, and I'm really proud of the work that I've put in and really grateful. So thank you for being a part of the first year of this journey. I hope to have many more years in the future, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! Okay, when I film these, I actually get really nervous and I start speaking really fast, and like I have to pause and like take a really deep breath. And hopefully I can fix it. Okay. I hope this filming turned out well, because I've been filming for 43 minutes. Okay. Ending it for real now. Okay, bye.